the Assad family have controlled Damascus for many decades. So the move into Damascus is a big thing. It's very ambitious for the rebels to really make a push in the city. What we're seeing at the minute is the city is beginning to shut down.
Now, let's go international because, of course, there's significant developments from Syria coming through this afternoon. According to reports, Syrian rebels are closing in on Damascus and have also entered the key city of Homs. This is the sound of a crowd gathering in a suburb of the capital today to pull down a statue of Assad's father. Dramatic scenes there. Now, the office of President Assad is denying that he's fled the capital, saying that he's continuing to perform his duties from Damascus. It's been just over a week since the rebels launched a lightning offensive in the north, seizing the second city of Aleppo, the biggest move against the Syrian government in years. Let's now speak with Damien McElroy, who is London bureau chief at the National, an English national news outlet covering the Middle East. Damien, thanks very much for joining us.
Hello, how are things?
Good. What are you hearing? Where are things at, Damien?
Well, there's lots of momentum for the rebels. There's several now areas where rebels have come out of the woodwork, as it were, and have challenged the government, and the government has collapsed. And they have been able to establish their footprint across a far wider section of Syria than they had 2 weeks ago. So really dramatic changes on the map of Syria, and the government is just melting away. There's no sign that its allies, Iran, Russia, are really putting their shoulder to the wheel and trying to push this rebel offensive back. And, in the south, in the north, in the east of Syria, the rebels are on the front foot. And as you say, the fall of key cities, and most particularly the Damascus, is now in play.
And as you say, it feels sort of different to last time in the sense, as you said, it doesn't feel like there's lots of allies coming to Assad's aid again. We know Russia is very, very preoccupied with what's happening in Ukraine and has got lots of fingers in lots of other pies. Do you think this is going to be the downfall of Assad? Is his time, is he on limited time? Is this going to be over for him?
Well, I think you might remember in 2013, there was that famous vote in Parliament that stopped essentially the Obama administration from retaliating against the Assad regime. And in a sense, it's been unfinished business since then. For about 2 years after that, the Assad fight back really kicked in and they took back Aleppo. But then they didn't finish it off. They didn't actually go into places like Idlib up in the northwest, where the same rebels who are fighting now and who were leading the offensive back in 2011-12 were able to stay there. They've had various support. They've had, a generation of people come through to be their foot soldiers, as it were. So, we are looking at something that has been unfinished business for a very long time. And now the momentum and the initiative has very much switched in the rebels' favour. And the regime hasn't rebuilt its army. Its military is proving ineffective. If they take, Homs, and they take one of the biggest oil refinery areas, so that means the country, ceases to start to function at that level. And then, we've suburbs of Damascus at the moment, which are tearing down regime statues, which is, again, highly symbolic and highly indicative of, the people of Syria coming back up to challenge the regime again. And at the minute, the regime doesn't seem to have any answers.
And Damien, who are these rebels? Do they have a leader? Where are they getting their arms from? Who's arming them? What do we know about them?
So there is a strong Islamist backbone to all this. The Hayat Tahrir al-Sham is a group that has been around from the start. As I say, if you go back to the first fall of Aleppo, they were had a slightly different name, but they were there. And then there is another grouping which is more a collection of people who used to be in the Free Syrian Army and other groups like that, and it's now called the Syrian National Army. So but the dominant faction is this Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, and they have been trying to present something of a different face. They say they don't sort of threaten beyond Syria's borders. They've been talking to some of the Christians in Aleppo about trying to get the place functioning again, etc. But they are sort of seasoned veterans. They have some of these factions in the opposition, in the rebels, have external support.
And where are they getting their arms from? Who's sort of supplying them? Who's supporting them financially or with weapons?
Well, I think this is a long-standing insurgency, so they have their links to various outside powers, etc. I think if you look at some of the comments that have been made in recent days by President Erdogan of Turkey, where he's basically said, Turkey is now on the right side of history in this. He's saying that, they went many times to Assad and tried to say to him, you need to talk through getting Syria to a settlement. And, Erdogan says that Assad spurned him and is now paying the price. And then you've got, the well-established Kurdish factions as well in the east of the country, and they'll be trying to maintain their footprint and their territory as well.
And look, Assad's office is denying that he's fled the capital. They're saying that he's continuing to perform his duties from Damascus. I mean, this is quite a spirited uprising. I presume there'll be a severe, his life will be in danger if people get hold of him. We could see scenes, presumably, like we saw with Gaddafi.
Well, I mean, that's the obvious thing that hangs over all this. And, we do remember how there was the fall of Tripoli, how Gaddafi fled, how it went on and on through various parts of Libya. And then he was eventually cornered and his fate was sealed. Assad is from a minority community in Syria. That community does have its own areas of dominance in Latakia and other areas. There are the two Russian military facilities, the airbase and the port, and which are in that kind of Assad area as well. So there's lots of dynamics to play out, and obviously the Assad family have controlled Damascus for many decades. So the move into Damascus is a big thing. It's very ambitious for the rebels to really make a push in the city. What we're seeing at the minute is the city is beginning to shut down, and the Assad rear guard has to now show its face because there's no other option.
And look, if there is some sort of fall of Assad, and if this regime falls, what will that ultimately mean for the people of Syria? I mean, who will likely rule over them? Will it be an Islamist regime that might, it's not Assad, but it might bring a different kind of pain and a different kind of hell to people's lives?
I think you have to be very worried about factionalization. I think you have to be very worried about, just the country actually entering into that absolute failed state territory. Yeah. I know lots of British officials and other officials are very worried about that because, it's a sort of unending roiling mayhem. But then there's the wider regional dynamic in which that scenario that you talk about basically moves the whole Middle East crisis to a new plateau, and everybody has to start dealing with it differently again. And it feels like we've been doing rather a lot of that for the last few years.